Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? A gracious good morning to you, good people. It's your girl KB. You know what I do, and you know why I do it. It is Wednesday, hump day. Yes, it is April 16th, and it is 2:44 in the a.m. And as you can tell, I have a little bit more pep in my step this morning, have a little bit more energy. I got a solid night's sleep, so I'm good to go, I think. Let me just dive right into some stuff this morning. Uh, this weekend, I am going to definitely send some shout outs because I've been lagging on that, and I apologize to everybody who tunes in. You know, shout outs are my way of saying I appreciate you. So I am definitely going to do that this weekend. As you know, I've had some stuff happen in my life that just messed me up, threw me for a loop, but I'm back. And I am refocused and revitalized and re-energized, and I'm going to do what needs to be done. How about that? So this weekend, definitely gonna send some shout outs. Uh, Other thing is, I'm also going to bombard you. Yes, I did say bombard with the things that I've been posting since the beginning of the year, and the things that I've been posting, I'm gonna say, on my other social media platforms. So I'm gonna hit you up with some of that info, and I'm gonna get back to what I know to do, what I know how to do. But please believe, and this is for this individual who, accused me of, I want to say, preaching divisiveness. I want to say this out loud to anyone and everyone who believes that of me, is that you will never know my experience as a black woman, who grew up in the hood, who's trying to navigate through certain genres, if you will. You will never know that experience. And I know as much as you would like to, you can't tell me how to be black. You can't tell me how to, I want to say, witness in a way that's real and genuine to folks that you have overlooked. It's nice to think of the kumbaya, but do you see it displayed anywhere? I want you to think about that. And I know a lot of you are saying, yeah, I see it in my church. Does your church look like, any average street where you walk down? I want you to look at your worship experience. I shared that my sister's pastor once said that your church should look like your local supermarket. So, there should be some diversity. And I know that's a bad word these days. So that should let you know the mindset of folks. We want the kumbaya on our terms, not in the real world, not in real time. And that's why I say, or I have the banner on the videos that I film at home that says, Real Talk for a Faith Walk. So this is what I experience. This is my life. This is what I see. This is what I know. This is what I struggle with. That's real talk. And I try my best to apply scripture to certain situations. And I share how I navigate through certain situations. Because if somebody tells you, oh no, everything's easy peasy, and I don't doubt, I don't struggle, you might want to give them the bombastic side eye. For real. Everything runs smooth for you 24/7. For real. You don't revert back to some old ways. For real. I want to share something with you on a personal level. I have a great working relationship with my diabetes team and my endocrinologist in particular. When he calls to check in or to talk about my numbers, this is how I answer the phone for him. What up, man? And we go from there, it's like, we just, he's a cool dude, so it's like I recognize the rapport that we have. So, I had my A1C numbers done. And for those of you who are just tuning in, I'm a type 1 diabetic with type 2 traits. I was diagnosed late in life. So, he was going over my numbers with me. And I had taken my A1C test as a request from my primary care physician, who didn't know that I was on a scheduled A1C testing based on this new trial of medication. So, he said, you did it too early, sis. And we're talking back and forth. And he said, I see this week that your numbers have been off because I have a continuous glucose monitor, and the numbers, I see them on my phone, and he's connected to the data link, so he gets to see them as well. He said, I see that you've been struggling this week. And I was brutally honest. It's like, yeah, man, I was on a honey bun binge. I had 3 in total, y'all, but it just messed my numbers up for an entire week. And I didn't have them 3 in one day. I had over a series of days in the week. I would have a honey bun. It's like, so yeah, man, I was on a honey bun binge. He said, can I ask why? I said, yeah, that's my drug of choice, sweets, bottom line. And as I shared, my good friend of 20 plus years passed. So I know I was comfort eating. I'm not going to lie to kick it. And he said to me, you're just brutally honest. It's like, you're not going to guess. You're not going to sugarcoat anything. I have no reason to. I said, yeah, I did it. Take ownership, man. Straight up. So that being said, accountability. You've heard me preach about that early on. Because I said, this ministry is born out of a painful experience. COVID and some just life stuff. So, you've heard me preach about accountability. Walk it like you talk it. That being said, I'm posing the question. I'm doing a Q&A for you. Now, I'm curious about the responses I'm going to get, if any. Question is, what is the dirtiest thing that someone has ever done to you? And how did you deal with it? Now, I'm going to ask that you keep it PG. The worst that you've ever heard me say, now I said bull stuff, and I came close to saying bull. You've heard me say damn, and you've heard me say hell. Now, just because I ignore the lyrics I'm talking about language, y'all. Just because I ignore the lyrics doesn't mean I don't know the song. Straight up from the hood, y'all. Not gonna lie to you. And I know there's some folks that grew up with me that tune in. We know the Lower East Side of Belo was grimy. But we didn't know that until we were adults. Lower East Side of Buffalo, New York, y'all. And you just have to look at the dynamics of the neighborhood now to fully understand what I'm talking about. Urban renewal is a myth. We were one of the first black families, I think we may be the second, in an all Polish neighborhood who owned their house. My mom bought the house with the money that she inherited from her folks after their passing. Okay, so you know how we came about the house. It was on a good sized lot. Now, as the white flight took place, it's like when black people started moving in, folks started moving to the burbs. That's the term, white flight. Okay, so as that took place, one of the houses next door to us, I'm gonna say the landlord torched because he could sell it. And it was subsequently torn down. Same for the house on the other side. So now the house that I grew up in is sitting on a lot. And I noticed from Google Maps or Google View, I noticed that there's a chain link fence around both the lots. Our house didn't have all that property. But because they tore the houses down, this house sits on a triple lot now. There was no garage. There was a little drive path, but there was no garage. But now we have all this land where this house stands. So again, if you grew up on the Lower East Side and you think about the Lower East Side now, you know you grew up in the hood. I'm old enough to have seen, the aftermath of race riots. I remember seeing grown folks cry when Kennedy and King were killed. I remember Vietnam protests, Nixon in office. Yeah, I'm that old. And my worldview has changed considerably over a period of time. And the same thing with my faith walk. I share with folks that when I was younger, I worshiped the God of my grandmother and mother. And I heard him call my name. And now I'm learning that a lot of the things that I've embraced as gospel were rules and regulations to preserve me as a person and overall, I want to say the race. Now, race is a construct, so we have to revisit the construct and see what needs to be, I want to say, shored up and what needs to be discarded. Think about what I'm saying. But getting back to that question, what is the dirtiest thing that somebody's ever done to you? And how did you process it?